is God in tragedy? I've heard it pray, I've heard it scream with clenched up fist and gritted teeth. Tell me, where is God? Where is God when terrors come and all seems lost and fires and floods and sorrows get the best of us? Tell me, where is God? And where is God when the preachers preach that He is all we'll ever need, but right now He's nowhere to be seen? Tell me, where is God?
We come to the very final message in the series, More Sermons by Request. And this last topic, the one that you've asked for, is probably the hardest one of all. Why do bad things happen to good people? Have you ever noticed that there are some questions that just don't have an easy answer? And some questions are loaded questions. And a loaded question can be just as dangerous as a loaded gun. For example, have you stopped beating your wife? Not very many ways to answer that one safely. Or this one. Now, do you actually believe that climate change, which all scientists agree is destroying our planet, is not real? Well, it's a loaded question, isn't it? And then there's always this domestic classic zinger. Honey, does this dress make me look fat? Well, in that same way, the question, why do bad things happen to good people, is a little harder to find the answer safely, simply. The real answer to that question is going to go deeper than a lot of people are willing to put the mental energy in to discover. But the real answer is there. Now, do you remember how Jesus often would take a very sticky question and answer it with a question? And in so doing, he kind of got down to the very kernel, to the very basis of the issue in that way. I thought maybe that would be a good way for us to approach this question today, to tackle this difficult question, why do bad things happen to good people, lest in turn ask three other questions that may help us. Why do bad things happen to good people? Here's the first question. Well, who are the good people? You know, good people. People who are nice. People who don't kick you when you're down. People who aren't Hitler. Interestingly enough, you hardly ever hear anybody ask the question, well, why do bad things happen to bad people? Well, it's pretty obvious. We all have a sense of justice and fair play. No, the thing that seems wrong is when bad things happen to good people. Now, here's the answer to that question. There are no good people. Jesus tells us that. Remember when he answered a hard question with another question to a ruler? He said this, the ruler did, "Good teacher, what must I do to inherit eternal life?" And Jesus answered back, "Well, why do you call me good? No one's good except God alone." I think Jesus was checking this guy out and asking, why are you calling me good? Are you acknowledging my deity? Or are you just lumping me in with all the other pseudo-good people of the earth? Jesus is letting us know the only one that is truly good is God. Therefore, bad things do happen to the rest of us. The other thing to take into consideration is this: being good will not give you an insurance policy against bad things happening. Jesus emphasized this one as well. He was quoting a verse from the book of Proverbs when he said, God causes the sun to rise on the evil and the good and sends rain on the righteous and the unrighteous. So good things happen to bad and good people. Logically, bad things will also happen to good and bad people. And if you find yourself being good and bad things happening to you, you are in very fine company. Because Noah was literally the last good person on the planet, and he suffered. Joseph was the best one of those 12 sons of Jacob, and he got sold into slavery and suffered. Stephen was the cream of the crop in the New Testament early church, and he suffered by being martyred for his faith. The poster child for bad things happening to good people is that saint from the Old Testament, Job. He understands it better than anybody, except maybe Jesus Christ himself. None more good than him, and they crucified him on a cross. So yes, being good is no assurance that bad things will not happen to you. In fact, it might just be a lightning rod, because Satan really loves to target good people. He really loves to try to bring you down, to get you to reject your faith. He can cause more damage with a good person, and he would certainly want to just leave the bad people alone. What good is it to bother them? They already belong to him. These are some of the reasons why bad things happen to good people when we consider that there is none who are truly good. Now, here's the second question. Why do bad things happen to good people? Begs this question: is God really in charge or not? Is God in charge? Well, Christians would answer that, of course, yes, because God is God. But it takes a lot of faith to see where God is in charge, and ultimately his sovereignty will not be seen for what it is until eternity. And for the atheist, for the materialist, who cannot see that anything happens beyond death, then they can't allow that there might be a day, one day, when God puts everything right. And we see how he was in charge all along. But for now, it might help us to realize that God may not be seen as in charge for this little thing called free will. God has always been a stickler for free will. He refuses to take away people's choices, even though he could. And as long as people have a choice of either doing good or doing bad, you know there's going to be a lot of people that are always going to choose the bad. And that's why bad things happen. Something else. It may not look like God is in charge, but he is allowing sometimes bad things to happen to make us stronger. The old English Don said this: God whispers to us in our pleasures, speaks to us in our conscience, but he shouts in our pains. It is his megaphone to rouse a deaf world. Therefore, if you and I are trying to do good and bad things are happening, that's the perfect time for us to perk up our ears and listen if the voice of God is trying to reach us and help us and teach us a lesson that we really need to know. There's another reason why God may not look like he is in charge. He's trapping Satan. He is giving that old snake enough rope to hang himself. Have you ever watched a chess match? And you'll see that one guy looks like he's losing. He's given up a piece, and another piece is gone. And then all of a sudden, his opponent has fallen into a trap from which there is no escape. We can see how that is happening in our world today. Bad things are happening. And God is letting it go because he sees what's going to happen at the end. Because even though it is such dark times, the gospel message and the witness of Christians is casting a light that is more effective than it has ever been before. And more people are choosing to choose God and not Satan. Not everyone, but some. Now, if you want to flip this coin on its side and look at the other side, sometimes God is not marching to our rescue because he is showing his glory. Do you remember what happened when the disciples asked Jesus about this guy over here that was born blind? How come was he born blind? And Jesus said, well, this happened so that the works of God might be displayed in him, to show God's glory. The Emirates last week demonstrated this in a wonderful way. How terrible to lose their 16-year-old daughter, Allison, to cancer like that. But they knew something more was going on than maybe met the eye. Do you remember what they said? They said more people joined the church and accepted Christ and were saved during that awful year because of the witness that was going on than any other year in their ministry. God was using a bad thing to show his glory. Satan always does things to try to hurt you. God always does things to try to help you. Doctors understand this. They hate it when they have to cause pain. But they know that a little pain is what might be necessary to promote the healing that we all want. They have the patient's best interests at heart. Good parents understand this. They refuse to bubble wrap their kids. Let nothing bad ever happen to them. They're helping the children. They're watching for when dark times come, but they will use those times so that their kids will build character and grow. That's because they have their child's best interest at heart. And for the Christian, when we understand that God is working all things together for our good, it makes it a whole lot easier to withstand the dark times when we can't really see whether God is in charge or not. Now, if you master that concept, then you're ready for the last tough question for this tough topic. Is getting angry at God wrong? Well, when you look in your bulletin and you see all those words of advice from various people, you'll see that anger needs to be handled delicately. It is a caustic thing. And even before Jesus walked this earth, there was a philosopher who said this: anybody can become angry. That's easy. But to be angry with the right person and to the right degree and at the right time and for the right purpose and in the right way, well, that is not within everybody's power, and that is not easy. Therefore, is it wrong to be angry at God? Again, I think back to the Emirates last week. When I got to know Chuck a little bit more and I started talking to him about maybe coming in and help me with last Sunday's sermon, and he told me, no, I never did get angry at God. I kind of thought, well, this guy's fake. And I think what we heard last week from him and from Amy, there's nothing fake there. Those guys are as authentic as they can be. What happens if you're not like that? What happens if we get frustrated, we get down? So is getting angry at God wrong? I've done a lot of research on this. Here's what I came up with. It's not wrong, but it's not right. It's not healthy, and it never helps getting angry at God. So I came up with 4 guidelines, 4 suggestions, if you would, that when things start getting you down, might help us as we navigate through these angry, stormy waters of life. Here's the first one. Plan ahead. When we talked last week about Jesus' parable, about building your house, spiritual house, upon the rock of faith in Jesus Christ, faith in his words of teaching. That is the secret for when difficult times come. You build on the sand, your house is going to crash. But if you build on the rock of Jesus, you stand a much better chance of having a witness that shows the world the value of planning ahead spiritually. This is why today we come to the Father. It's not because we're in great crisis, not today, but we may be tomorrow. We'll learn some things now that will be helpful when we need it. Plan ahead. Second, when you are tempted to be angry at God, then at least be honest with your feelings toward him. The best example I can come up with for this is Thomas. You remember Thomas. Thomas was the disciple that was not present when the resurrected Jesus revealed himself to all of the other disciples, and therefore when he came back the second time said, nope, there's no way I'm going to believe that Jesus is alive. No, he cannot be alive, not until I put my fingers into the open wounds in his hand and his side. Now, God did not blow him into a pile of ash, but instead, the next time Jesus showed, he said, put your hands here. Touch my side. Stop doubting and believe. And you remember what Thomas did. He fell to his knees and he said, my Lord and my God. We would remember doubting Thomas a whole lot differently if he would have said, nope. I don't care if I can see that you're alive and you're resurrected and you got wounds. I'm still not going to believe. Therefore, you go ahead and bring to God your doubts and your questions and your hurts and your frustrations, and yes, even bring to him your anger. But be honest enough that when he starts to show you his wounds, starts to show you his love and his authority and his power, then let it go and move on. Because the third guideline is very important. Don't get stuck. Where Thomas is the best example I can think of someone who gave their frustrations over to the Lord. Cain is the worst example I can think of someone who did not deal with their anger. Cain, the firstborn child of Adam and Eve. Cain, the one who was so angry at God because he did not accept his offering. Not because the offering was inferior, but because Cain was not doing right. And that's when God said to him, "Why are you angry? Why is your face downcast? If you do what is right, you will not be accepted." Let me try that again. If you do what is right, will you not be accepted? But if you do not do what is right, sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you, but you must rule over it. Tragically, Cain didn't do anything about the lion that was at his door. And his anger got the best of him, and he murdered his brother. And that anger ended up destroying him. And friends, the lion still crouches. He's still at our door. And we got to do something about it. According to the Apostle Paul, in your anger, do not sin. Do not let the sun go down while you are still angry. And do not give the devil a foothold. Get rid of that lion of anger so that Satan doesn't have the chance to trip you up. But the best of all piece of advice I can give you, the guideline you need to know is this one: avoid getting angry in the first place. Why? Because it's just not worth it. I chose our text for this sermon to be this one from the book of Romans. I consider that our present sufferings are not worth comparing with the glory that will be revealed in us. Paul tells us it ain't worth it. Don't get mad and miss all the other good things that are happening. Let it go. Oh, we have so many people in this world who do not know God. And so they question his integrity and blame him for everything. And Satan, he certainly does know God. And he despises him. And instead of all this going to Satan, where it really belongs, he deflects and blames it on God. But wise is the Christian who realizes that it isn't God's fault, that God is still in charge, and that he is so desperately working within us, even in ways that we may not see, to bring us home. I know a lady who recently lost her husband to death. And at the funeral, a very well-meaning person came to her and said, "Honey, it's okay if you get angry at God." And she looked at her and fired back, "Why would I want to be angry at God? He's my Redeemer. He's the giver of life. My dear husband right now is in glory because of God. No matter how bad things ever get, I will never get angry at God." What faith? Because she knows that the worst thing that can happen to any of us is missing out on heaven because we got angry at the one who can save us. Please don't get angry at God and miss heaven, because if that happens, the only one you'll be able to be angry with is you. To miss heaven, you got to reject Jesus. Do you know Jesus? Is he your Lord? Not just today, but every day. Whatever your decision is, would you stand? Would you come?